What breed of chicken should I get? A lot of folks ask that question, or they Google that question, and they get a plethora of answers. It can be a little bit overwhelming. You'll get on Google and you'll see that they're saying get Cornish crosses for meat, or get leghorns for laying. And the problem with a lot of the answers you'll get is it's for a different context than ours. If you're looking at things from a regenerative agricultural perspective, a permaculture perspective, or self-sufficiency where you actually want to be able to feed your animals from your land, well, those answers aren't necessarily correct for you, because you're not just looking for something to pump full of grain and then slaughter at the youngest age possible, like a Cornish cross. Or you're not looking for a bird that you can't even propagate like a Cornish cross. Nor are you looking for a layer that's only designed to be pumped full of grain in a cage like an industrial breed bird. You are probably looking for something that can go out and forage, go out and eat, go out on pasture, or into a compost pile, or be fed food, largely food scraps. And of course, they're not going to lay as good as an industrial bird, but they're going to still lay well and gain weight despite a slimmer, more varied diet. And you're also going to find that different breeds are better at foraging, not just that they eat more and put on weight and do better, but they actually scratch at compost piles better, or they are more brave. They'll go out a little bit further in a bigger radius and look for food. So this video is not going to really give you the specific breeds, rather, because that's going to change based on your region. If you're in a forest context like this, that's very different than if you're in a desert in Arizona, or if you are in a pasture in Minnesota. It's not going to be the same breed of birds necessarily. And the breed may not matter too much. What I've found is that even within the same breed, I'll have many different characteristics. So rather, what I need to do is breed the genetics that I like within my flock. So what I would recommend to somebody if they were starting out without any chickens would be, first of all, ask around your local permaculture people or your local actual self-sufficient or older homesteaders. What breeds do they use? What's popular in your area traditionally? What goes back? Can you find any historical references to what people raised? Because that's probably a bird that's designed for your specific vegetation, your specific insects. It's going to actually forage near you. And so you find out what those are, and then buy some local genetics if you can. Find a guy on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, or a local chicken breeder, or an old timer that's selling them, or anything like that. The more local you can get, or if you can find some local Amish or Mennonites, the better off you're gonna be. But if you can't, it's okay to go to Tractor Supply or Murray McMurray or one of the big hatcheries or something like that, because you can propagate your own line. So what I would kind of recommend looking for in your breeds is good foragers, good dual purpose birds. I like to maintain one genetic line where I don't just raise up a flock of meat birds. What I do is I incubate a bunch of birds, or I let them go broody, and I take those chicks and I raise them all up together, and then the males get separated and they get raised up as meat birds. They do get stuffed full of grain generally. And then the females become my layers. I'm only maintaining one flock on this homestead. I have multiple bays and the flocks are separated sometimes, but I really need one kind of bird, so it's either going to be one breed or a general barnyard mix that becomes its own breed. So you might want to think that way. What's a good dual-purpose bird that forages? Things like speckled Sussexes are really popular. These heritage breeds are really popular. Black Australorps have done pretty well for me. But what I've actually settled on is Americanas, and that's for a very good reason. The Americanas are good dual-purpose birds. They lay well. They're good meat birds. They get nice and plump. Over here we have a rooster. He's actually in that feed bucket right now, but if you could see him, he's pretty big boy. So they make good meat birds, but they're also really docile, and that's another characteristic that I breed for. I want docile birds. And then I do Americanas specifically. There's a lot of birds that would do the same thing, but I like them specifically because they lay the blue eggs, and I find that I can sell the babies. They go for about $6 from Tractor Supply as chicks, so really high value. I can get my money back. All the money that I do have to put into feed or building housing, or other expenses related to the chickens, I can recover that money and make this a fiat-free endeavor, essentially. So that's why I've tried, this is our original flock on this side, so we tried all sorts of things, Australorps, Americanas, different breeds, and I found that the Americanas were the best all-around fit for my context. But I'm not done with my breeding yet, because now I've decided my breed, but now I need to breed the characteristics I like. I built this 3-bay system in this new chicken coop specifically so that I could separate the ones that I like. So if they display good broody characteristics, they sit on eggs really well, or they're good layers, or they're really friendly. For example, this white girl here is very, very docile. There's 2 of them, they're sisters. Their mama was one of the friendliest chickens I'd ever had. And so I specifically kept her eggs and hatched those out so I get more docile birds. This means that as I propagate that line, the roosters aren't going to be fighting me and becoming crock-pot roosters. They're gonna get to live, and they're easier to catch. I'm not chasing them all over the property. These are also, they lay smaller eggs, but prolifically. And that's something against conventional wisdom. I like smaller chickens generally. They fit in the crock pot better, they fit in the freezer better, and they do better foraging. They can take a lean period like winter because they don't have to support as much chicken. So I don't mind the smaller breeds. You know, I kind of like somewhere in between. So those are some characteristics to look for as you pick your breed and as you breed them out. Can they scratch? Can they forage? Do they have enough brains to hide? Are they brave enough to go venture out away from the coop and actually free range? Are they good for meat, and are they also good for eggs? I don't think there is any one breed that's perfect, and I think different contexts are going to have different answers. So just some things to think about as you're picking out your breeds and as you're breeding those characteristics. You might maintain 2 genetic lines. I find that I can't seem to find Americanas that are very good at going broody, so I might have a separate line for that. I might go with Bantams or something because those will also sell well. They're very small, they're not going to take a lot of feed, and I'm only going to be using them for specifically going broody, which will also help with my ducks because the ducks aren't very good mamas, they're not good at hatching eggs, so I can put different eggs underneath those broody hens. And then I don't have to breed broodiness into the Americanas, which is important because when they go broody, they don't lay. So I'll probably run those 2 specific lines of chickens, and that's kind of what played into the decision making. So hopefully that's useful in how to think about your breeds and what to buy, what to research, and what to propagate. Also, as I mentioned, in any context, pretty much it's going to be important to have multiple coops or multiple bays in your coops. That's why we did this 3-bay system. It's not done yet. Still got to build our brooder boxes and our roosts and feeders and waterers, but the brunt of it is done. We did it largely out of scrap materials like log sides and old doors. And speaking of log materials, scrap materials, I have to start making a plug at the end of videos about a book called Scrapsteading. Billy Bond from over at Permapastures Farm and I last year we were talking about how we built our homesteads and our self-sufficiency from nothing. We were pretty much broke when we started out and we didn't have a lot of financial resources. So both of us learned to find scrap materials, to feed our animals for free, to build our infrastructure for free or really cheap. And so we kind of got together and collaborated and worked really hard over the last year to write a short 100-page book on how to do all of this from any financial perspective, whether that's accessing land with no money or little money or getting more land, how to build your infrastructure, where to find these materials, how to build the relationships with the people where you can get these materials, how to use the materials, the different projects we do with them, where to source free food for your animals, where to source free mulches and compost components, and how to tie that all together and in a permaculture context build out a truly self-sufficient system that doesn't require a whole bunch of money to get started with, or even any money. So it's a good resource, I think, for anybody who's wanting to start homesteading or is already homesteading but wants to expand and do so without investing a ton of fiat currency. So if that sounds like a useful resource to you, and I hope it is, we've posted that up. It's going to be available on August 14th, so really just a few days from now, at scrapsteading.com. Gabby just finished the website. It's not ready now, but you can go to the website anyway, at scrapsteading.com, and you can sign up your email, and then we'll let you know when it is ready. Or you can just wait a few days, and the book will be up there. We're pretty excited. It's the first book for both Billy and myself, and it was really fun to collaborate on it and spend a year. I actually learned a lot from Billy that I'm now implementing on this farm and implementing in this coop, because he's so good at building those relationships, at talking people out of their food scraps and things like that. So it was a really cool synthesis, and I think it'll be a fun book and very useful to just about anybody in the homesteading world. So hopefully that's useful to y'all. In the meantime, everyone, stay safe, be well, and happy homesteading.